Nick, I have been following you and your sister with tapping for quite a few years. And I actually do notice when I do the practice,
Yeah.
I do feel a sense of calm or whatever I'm tapping for. So I wanted to say that. And moreover, thank you for spending a little time with us this morning. I know our viewers will really love hearing about the power of tapping.
Of course, absolutely. Have you tried the app yet?
No, no, I have
Yeah.
not. I have not.
Yeah, because you said a key thing when you do it, right? That's the biggest struggle with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, do we actually do the thing that makes us feel better?
Could you just tell us a little bit about how you got started? I'm sure you get asked this all the time, or
Yeah.
how you found this.
Yeah, so my first introduction to tapping was actually in 2003 at a Tony Robbins event. So I know everyone knows who
Yeah.
Tony is, and I had gone through a couple of his courses. So at the time, I must be 24, 25 years old, and he did a little demonstration of tapping and was up on stage and just said, you do this and you do this, and he'd recommended it. So I checked it out. So I started reading books about it, learning some stuff online, and for the following couple of years, it was just trying it out, right? So something would happen, a friend would be upset or their shoulder would hurt, whatever's happening, I'd say, I learned this tapping thing, should we just do it? And it's one of the beautiful things about tapping, that when you know it, you can share it with someone else. I mean, certainly there's practitioners and there's deeper work that we can talk about, but in terms of like, hey, I'm feeling down today, I'm feeling anxious, my shoulder hurts, there's something that isn't flowing in my body, right? Something that doesn't feel right, you can do this tapping process. And I spent the next couple of years just using it, just learning about it and being a passionate advocate for it. And then in 2007, I had the inspiration to make a documentary film about it. Uh, no money, credit cards and credit lines,
Wow.
zero filmmaking equipment,
Mm.
zero filmmaking experience. It was just like, okay, we went online, we bought a bunch of equipment. I remember so clearly sitting in my little 500 square foot apartment and with my younger sister Jessica, who you mentioned, and one of my best friends from high school, unpacking boxes and going like, "Is this a light? I mean, it looks like a light, doesn't it?" But and then you just go on YouTube and you figure things out. And I mean, I was 29 at the time, so a little bit of being passionate, naive, caring deeply about something, and just going with it. And we spent the next year filming all sorts of things, like you do with any film, but especially when you don't know what you're doing, tons of junk, just trying stuff. And but then we got these great interviews from experts like Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul,
Mhm.
Cheryl Richardson, like all these amazing people who are using tapping. And we then brought people in from outside. We actually brought 10 people together for an event where they weren't familiar with tapping. We tapped with them, we showed it on camera, because I wanted to just show it. I wanted to prove it. I didn't want it to be like a talking heads documentary where everyone says it's great. It's like, let's show real people, a little bit of like reality TV style. Let's show real people. And we released that documentary in 2008. And now, 13 years later, I've just spent the last decade plus sharing the film, summits, online events, programs, books, a couple New York Times bestselling books, and then the app, all with the mission to get people to use this tool, all with the mission to give people the experience and to show just how powerful it is in changing people's lives.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And so, Nick, can you tell us what's going on when you're
Yeah.
tapping?
Yeah, great question. So, when I first learned about it in 2003, there was a lot of talk about the meridian system and balancing energy. And that's all probably true and fabulous. And certainly a world that I live, I can go into that,
Yeah.
more esoteric world. We could talk about auras and chakras and all that stuff. So there's that component that we're discovering, we're all learning about together. What the latest research, in really for those research minded and oriented people, shows is that when we physically tap on these endpoints of meridians of our body, while focusing on the stress, the anxiety, whatever's going on in our lives, we send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain. And a lot of your listeners and viewers will know that the amygdala is that fight, flight, or freeze response center in the brain. So when we're stressed, And it can be about anything. It can be a little email that we got. It could be a text that rubbed us the wrong way, or it can be a serious life situation with all different levels of stress. When we are stressed, our amygdala is firing. That fight or flight response part of our brain is firing, and our body is being activated. So what tapping does is it reduces that firing of the amygdala, it reduces that stress response. And that's why it can work on so many things. So you mentioned my sister, Jessica, who's a big part of her work has been on weight loss and body confidence. And people say, what are we doing tapping on weight loss? We're looking at the stress side of weight loss and weight gain. I mean, everyone will tell you, what do you do when you're feeling stressed? Like, oh, I just grab the bag of chips or the ice cream, or, I'm not conscious when I'm eating, or I'm so overwhelmed and stressed, I don't feel like exercising. So all these components of stress that lead to weight loss, plus the actual physical response of stress is a contributor to weight gain. When we have cortisol in our bodies, when we're chronically stressed, our body says, hey, there's danger out here. We got to hold on to this weight. Like, with this fat is good because there's clearly danger. We're overworked, we're stressed out, and we have to hold on to it. So everything from that, from weight loss to, like I mentioned, the daily things that you just can't let go of, right? When someone said something to you a week ago and you just keep running in your brain over and over and over again. I hear from so many people like, oh, I'm an overthinker. I just can't stop that loop, right? Our brain is trying to keep us safe. It's good to think clearly, right? It's good to think through our challenges and our problems. But the question that we have to look at within ourselves is what happens when that loop doesn't stop? What happens when we think the same thoughts we've been thinking for 20 years? What happens when we don't feel like we're moving forward in a positive direction because we feel stuck? And that's really at the core of what tapping does so well. It helps the brain and the body get unstuck.
I have a family member with OCD.
Mm,
And I've been looking into tapping
yeah,
for this family member
yeah.
to see whether, do you feel as though something, any mental health issue or things like that, that this is a viable path to try?
Yeah. So first off, the second we say anything that has a clinical diagnosis like OCD, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, can't recommend it, right? So we'll put that there. Go talk to a therapist.
Right.
Good, healthy disclaimer. Now, here's what I see. One, I see a lot of therapists recommending the technique. So people who work with clients one-on-one, because it's, the paradigm shift here with this tapping thing and other somatic therapies, where we're saying by somatic, like bringing the body in, is that we've been up in our heads, for
Yeah.
so long. And that's been the therapeutic model that says, okay, you have OCD. Well, let's talk about, when did it start? What happened? What are the thought patterns that make you think this? And certainly cognitive behavioral therapy, other therapies, there's beauty in them and there's amazing stuff in there. But when those don't work, or when they don't go far enough, or when they don't unlock something, we have to look elsewhere. And that's when we bring the body in and say, we need to address different components. So I've seen amazing results on just about everything. OCD, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. There's those loops, there's those patterns, there's those thinking the same thing. If it's a serious case, you go work with a therapist. There's psychologists and psychiatrists that use tapping in their practice all the time. One of the biggest supporters of our app are therapists, because they say, hey, we can talk about things and maybe we can do some tapping together. But then what happens when it's Wednesday night at 11:30 at night and you're running those patterns and you need some support? That's where the app comes in so brilliantly. So I would give it a shot. There's nothing to lose by it, right? And what most people notice very quickly, if they give the tapping enough time, if they even give it 10 minutes and just go, all right, I know it's weird and I know, but let me just give it 10 minutes, they're going to feel a difference afterwards. They're going to say something has shifted. And, I mentioned the science and research showing the amygdala. We have research on the app itself now, which is exciting. So we just crossed 6.5 million completed sessions on the app, right? To give you an idea of the scope of it. For all those 6.5 million sessions, we have 0 to 10 data points, because when part of the tapping process is, okay, how anxious are you right now? How stressed are you? How much pain are you in? On a 0 to 10 scale. So easy to measure. And you go, you know what, I tune in, it's a 7 or 8. And then do the tapping and you go, oh, wow, it's a 3 or a 4. So we have 6.5 million data points, and actually had a research study published showing a statistically significant reduction in stress and anxiety from doing tapping for just 10 minutes.
It's totally amazing and wonderful that you're sharing this with everyone. Honestly, I think you're doing such a great service. You know?
Thank you. I mean, it's certainly been, what's driven me from the beginning is that it works, and
Yeah.
have learned along the way the importance of science and research, the importance of translating this in a way, because there's still days when I wake up and I'm like, wait, I'm doing what? I'm tapping, and then like we have no context for it, right? We've never, like, until now. I mean, my daughter has context for tapping because she's seen me tap, and she's done this little kids tapping meditation in the morning. So she has context. When she's older, she won't think it's crazy. But for the rest of us, it's like, when have we ever seen this? And how could that possibly be helpful, especially in the society we live in? And I know you both know this, that we have a very biology centered society, meaning like there's a white pill, and you take the white pill to do a whole bunch of other things. And anything that's not a white pill, not that a white pill is not fabulous in certain situations and life-saving and all those things, but this idea that it's like what you swallow and digest through your system is the only thing that can possibly change your chemistry, change your biology, change your state of being. We know otherwise, but we have that foundation that says, oh, you got to swallow the white pill. If I'm in pain, got to swallow the white pill. If I'm in pain, got to do this thing or that thing, or I have to do physical therapies to reduce the pain. The results I see with pain relief every single day are just, they're astounding. I mean, and it's almost too good to be true at times.
So, but wait, if you're talking about the amygdala and fight and flight, right? So how does the pain relief work? Is that a different part of the brain?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there could be different mechanisms involved, but even if we're going just with the amygdala and the fight or flight response, when you have pain, especially chronic pain, it's one thing, look, you cut your finger, it's going to hurt now. That signal in the body is a good, important signal. But when you've been in pain for 20 years and you go to doctors and they go, either I can't find anything wrong, or even they'll say, oh, well, you have a, inflamed this vertebrae, so that's why you're in pain. And we'll give you the steroid, you'll feel better for 3 months, and then it'll stop working. Even in those cases, I've seen that when people relax their body, when they turn off that fight or flight response, when they leave behind all the burdens that they were carrying, a couple of stories come to mind. I was in Washington, D.C., probably 6 or 7 years ago now, speaking for Hay House, who's my publisher, and big audience, 5,000 people. And I come up on stage and I demonstrate tapping, and then I say, let's actually do it together. So who here is in pain? And usually about a quarter of the room raises their hand, which is just crazy how much people suffer from physical pain. And I just go, you, and you, right? And I bring up a couple people. So Kathy comes up on stage and she says, I've had a toothache for 2 years now, like,
oh my
just
God.
tooth pain all the time. Gone to a dentist, obviously, root canals, antibiotics, this, that, and the other, all these things. And she says, I'm still in pain. It hurts right now, 8 or 9 as we talk. So we start doing a little tapping, and I asked her, I said, when did this pain start? And she said, it was around this date. And I said, what was going on in your life when that pain started? And you could see that, I mean, she never asked herself that question. She never thought of that, because that's not something that a pain doctor will say, what was happening, when your toothache started? And she said, my mom passed away unexpectedly that weekend. We were in Vegas for a family vacation. She passed away and you could just see this realization dawning. It was just like, oh, and I've had that pain ever since. During our 20 minutes, her pain went from an 8 or 9 to like a 2 or 3. So just in that time, dramatic reduction. She goes home, she gets my book, she goes deeper into tapping, pain goes away altogether. This is my favorite part. She'd been going to a dentist, right, the whole time. So she had all these x-rays. She goes back to the dentist, she says, my pain is gone, did this weird tapping thing, and they do an x-ray, and the infection was gone. So you could see, and I actually put it in a book I wrote about pain relief, you could see pre-tapping an infection, and post-tapping, the infection's gone. Now, what happened there? I mean, a million things happened there, right? But the bottom line is we think, oh, there's an infection, and certainly, again, take antibiotics for an infection, do all those things. But when you've tried everything and the body's not healing, then you begin to ask yourself, what else can I do to support the body's healing?
Mhm.
Relaxing the body, releasing trauma, releasing grief, finding peace in your heart, letting go, allowing the body to relax more deeply. All of those things helped Kathy's tooth heal. So it wasn't the tapping itself got rid of the infection, but it moved her body into a healing state, and then the infection went away.
Makes me cry a little bit.
I know.
That's so
It's
beautiful to me.
wonderful. So we were so blessed to have an interview with Scarlett Lewis.
Yeah. Mm.
Can you speak to what that was like to work with her? Clearly, she had a lot of unimaginable grief, and I too have my own grief that I'm moving through, and my family. And so, can you talk a bit about the grief in tapping?
Yeah. So just a little context for people who missed the interview with Scarlett. Scarlett lost her son. Of course, Scarlett lost her son Jesse in the Sandy Hook school shootings, and I live in Newtown, Connecticut, so that school is 10 minutes from where
Wow.
we're talking right now. So in 2012, the business had been running for a couple of years, been doing this work and getting out in the world. And when I knew that tapping could help with trauma and grief, and when it's 10 minutes from your house, you have, of course, going to help. So we started the Tapping Solution Foundation, then quickly brought in a trauma expert that I had worked with in the past with some work in Rwanda, and began to do what we could to just help people, to help them find some peace. So, the shooting happened on Friday. I put a call out to my email list on Saturday about what we were doing and the process, and raising some funds there to bring people in and to be able to do that work. And also saying, hey, if you know anyone in town who's affected, let us know. Because funny enough, strangely enough, even when sometimes you want to help and you can't, right? Because you can't reach the right person, or people aren't open to it, or there's 1,000 people descending on the situation. So we had volunteers. We had probably 1,000 people offering us to come and help, but we didn't have jobs for them, right? It's sometimes hard to help. But we were here and we put out the call, and Scarlett reached out to us. She had actually been on my email list, and that following Tuesday, so we're talking days later after the worst day of her life. I remember so clearly, it was a rainy Tuesday night, walking into her house, pictures of Jesse everywhere, his paintings of him, his room, his bedroom. It just happened. And so Scarlett knew a little bit about tapping. I took her through the process, and what we did that night is we just did some tapping to find some physical relief, to just help relax the body a little bit. And I asked her, it's like, what's the emotion you're feeling most right now? And she was feeling anger, and it was actually anger about a different situation. She was dealing with so much, right? That can't even begin to process the loss of your 6-year-old son 4 days later. That all I was looking to do in that moment, and what the tapping helped to do, is to just begin to offload some of the emotional turmoil. Because we could even have emotional turmoil about other things. Gene, you could be dealing with grief, but then you're mad about the cable man being late, and that's something that you're dealing with. And the cable man being late on top of the things that you're feeling is really a lot. So maybe we go, okay, can we release some of the anger about the cable man being late? And now it's not this burden on the body, right?
Yeah.
So we worked together that night and worked together for months afterwards, and continued to. I was just texting with her 2 days ago. What she found and what I found with people who are grieving is that we don't tap on the grief, right? Whereas we go, okay, let's clear away this anger. We don't say, let's clear away this grief. We clear away all the other stuff. We clear away the regrets, the what ifs, the what if I had done something differently, the anger towards this person or that person, everything that surrounds it. And then what happens when we do that work is then people say, I can actually grieve now. I can actually feel these feelings now that aren't anger and shame and guilt and sadness and whatever else surrounds it. I can miss the person. I can connect with the person. If people are spiritually oriented, they often feel like, oh my gosh, I feel this connection that I didn't feel before because I had all this other stuff clouding it.
Yeah, so preoccupied. Yeah.
Yeah. And the body is in fight or flight mode. The body is just trying to keep up, just trying to deal. So finding that peace. The other place where it comes in beautifully in those situations. So Scarlett was actually familiar with panic attacks. She had them before. A couple months after Jesse died, she wakes up at 3 in the morning in the middle of a panic attack. And if you've had a real panic attack, you know that it's not something you just talk your way out of. It's like people usually need to go to the hospital or get some sort of medical intervention. Like if you get a full-blown panic attack, you need help, right? And her older son, JT, who was 13 or 14 at the time, was sleeping in the other room. And she said, well, I could call an ambulance and maybe I can get some meds, get some help, and get back before he wakes up, like just trying to make sense of it. And she had enough space, enough, presence of mind to go, let me try tapping, right? Like before I do that, before I call an ambulance, let me try tapping. She tapped for 10 minutes on her own and she fell asleep. So it's like, those are the interventions. Those are the cases where it just comes in so beautifully. I mean, inside the app, partially because of that story, we have a stop a panic attack meditation. I've heard it being used countless times to just, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. Here's something that can guide me to bring me back to a place of peace from where I can make better decisions. Maybe I need to go get medications or other help or make other choices, but at least taking back some of that power where people feel like they're in control of their own bodies.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like when you can calm down,
Yeah.
then you can those decisions come from a place of peace or, peace
Yeah.
rather than
Being on fire.
being on fire. Yeah, that's so true.
And even physically, so when we're on fire, when our amygdala is firing, the blood flows away from our brains into our arms and legs. Like we literally cannot think as well. And that's designed because fight or flight, running away from a tiger, don't need anything in the brain, just need to act, right? Just need to go do things. And when you ask people like, hey, when did you have your best idea, or when were you most inspired? Like it's
In the bathtub.
in the bathtub, taking a shower, walking in nature. I've never once heard I had the worst day at work. I was so stressed. I was running around doing all, and then I had this insight of how to fix it all. No, we make poor decisions when we're stressed. We make poor decisions when we're sleep deprived and overworked and all those things. So the more we can come back to this place of peace, the better our lives are going to be.
Could I ask you, you seem to have such a big heart, and you said that you went to see Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah.
What
Yep.
where were you? So many of our readers are always interested, like, how'd that guy find that? Like,
Yeah.
where were you prior? Like,
Yeah.
what was your life like? Or did you what was your college experience? Like, where were you?
Yeah, great question. So, certainly always interested in personal development and just becoming better than I was the day before, which not everyone is necessarily. I mean, I think they should be. I think hopefully people get there eventually. But I think from a young age, that was, something that I aspired to. I think with Tony, I had seen, I think my mom had bought his tapes, from an infomercial, like it was in the
Yes.
90s, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and I had listened to them, and then I was living in Manhattan, and I was living in Manhattan. I was pretty unhappy. Just had different clients. I had a web development business, and just a lot of stuff, just a lot of junk like we have in life. And I saw his face on a Learning Annex poster in the city.
Yep.
For his UPW weekend, and I know you're both familiar with those Learning Annex.
Yes,
I don't know if they're there anymore, right? But you pull down a little thing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I signed up and I went by myself to this Tony Robbins weekend event, and that was really transforming. And just like, I think what Tony does so beautifully, especially in those events, is he teaches you that you can control your life, that you can't control everything in your life, but you can control how you feel often. You can make different decisions, that your past doesn't control you, that your beliefs about who you are don't have to remain the same, that you can do things in life. And again, a lot of us certainly wasn't taught in high school or college, like, hey, you have agency. Like, there are things that you can do today to have a better tomorrow. So Tony taught that to me, and I went and did all his courses and everything. And what's really cool is that he actually came to Newtown, to Sandy Hook,
Wow.
maybe it was a year or two after. No, it was probably that same year, the year of the shootings. He came quietly, didn't announce it to the press, flew in other shooting survivors that he had come in contact with to create that sense of community for the people who had lost loved ones. So that was really beautiful. And Scarlett invited me to a little hotel room where he was, and I was able to meet him in person. And he saw the work that we were doing in Sandy Hook. We became fast friends, and he's now inside the app. We have a morning and evening meditation from tapping meditation from Tony Robbins, and he's also minority owner in the app. So like from 2003, full circle to actually have him in the app has been exciting. And you mentioned the big heart. It's been rooted all the way through and just trying to make a difference, right? I don't think I could have gotten Tony's attention if I tried to get his attention.
Correct.
I was doing work here in Newtown. I was passionate about the work. I felt called to do the work. And I put one foot in front of the other every day to do good work. And then that was recognized.
That's wonderful. This piece will be accompanied with an invitation for our readers to go to the app and look at it. Is there anything else in your future or anything that you'd like to have us highlight or talk about before we say goodbye?
I mean, the app is where I'm putting most of my attention now. It's a free download with 30 plus free tapping meditations, so plenty for someone to have a really good experience. And if they can't afford it, over the past year, we've donated 30,000 memberships to first responders, nurses, doctors, mental health therapists, teachers. So, the people on the front lines this past year, we were like, you get the premium access for free, because there's 300 plus tapping meditations in there that are growing every day. And that's really, going forward, that's what I'm focused on, both growing that library and getting the app in as many people's hands as possible, and then also continuing to serve those underserved communities, the people who can't afford the app, who would never be introduced to a technique like this, to just keep changing lives.
When we were talking to our friends that we were going to be doing this interview, and normally we have to explain who people are or what it is, and people like, oh yeah, I tap or I do. Like, I was so surprised to realize how many people, how many lives you are really into out here. So thank you so much.
And I just want to share one thing with you, Nick. So there was one night that back, like maybe I'm going to say like 7 years ago, and I couldn't sleep. And I remember, maybe I should tap about the situation that was on my mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the exact, the what you did. And I remember think, oh, he did this, and I remember this.
Yeah.
I did it purely just just do what you remember. Tell myself that I love and accept myself anyway. And I really had that peace that passes all understanding wash over me, like the sincerity of my heart to release. So it wasn't the perfect way that
absolutely.
But my intention, remembering what you did, and I had a really, oh my God, it's going to be okay.
That's beautiful. Well, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, people freak out all the time, like, oh, I miss a point and this, that, and the other. Like, the beauty of the process is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes even just tapping on a point. I mean, you said other things that, the intention is so big. One of the things that I'm noticing very clearly in the app is, and, it's 300 plus in there. I think I've done about 200 of them. My sister's done 100. And, in the beginning, we were recording a lot. And some you just record because you're recording it and you're flushing out a category. And then others, like I did a You Are Enough tapping meditation where I was meditating, tapping, and I was just inspired to do it. And the intention behind that one and the energy behind that is so powerful. And the results show, because people say, this is like the greatest meditation I've ever done, because of all these factors coming together, because of my intention, because of the subject matter, because of the tapping, because of, what people are with the music behind it and everything they're expecting. So I think you'll really both enjoy the app experience.
Thank you.
I hope we stay in touch. You really are so even nicer than we thought.
That's very kind.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.